is if you'll just give me a big smile, I'm going to make our little, let's see if I can get him where he doesn't look so goofy here. There we go. All right, perfect. That'll be our social media little header picture for the informational post. But we'll just go ahead and get it started. Alex Reed from CT Race Worx is on the show after weeks, it seems, of planning. I'm so glad to have you here.
Yeah, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, I told you this just before, and I'll say it again. I owe you the most sincere and biggest apology that I can give, because I think I was texting you just before my son was born, which was like, I feel like a month ago, or I can't even remember if he was born yet or whatever it was. And then on Friday, we were supposed to record this, and I had someone at work absolutely go bananas on me and just have to require all of my attention for everything on my day off. So either way, it's gone crazy. And I also just want to apologize to my wife. Just so happened to be the day she had to step out. So we've got a third member of the show. So everybody listening just to the audio version, the squeaks and hiccups are coming from my son. So he is joining us in the studio today, but he's pretty quiet. He doesn't cry.
Good deal.
Yeah. So how you been, man? The last year has been crazy for everybody. And I always like to do a little bit of due diligence before we start recording. I noticed that you guys you have a high volume warning, like on your website, things like that. How's business been? How's life been for you? Tell me about it.
Man, it's been good. Business has been awesome. Man, the last couple of years, we've just grown and grown and grown. I've got zero complaints. Everything's good. Personal things, good. Getting out, doing all the things that we like to do. Man, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. So before we dive into the business side of things, tell me a little bit about yourself, like outside the off-road world. Are you, how'd you get your start in this? Can you drive, big machinery? What can you do? What do you like to do other than off-road stuff?
Man, I'm a big outdoors guy. Like to camp, whitewater kayak stuff, mountain bike, do a lot of shooting as well. So man, that's my stuff. If it's outdoors, I'm doing it. I got a big LMTV expedition rig I'm building. So we can pretty much haul a side by side behind us, all of our gear, go wherever we want.
So you said you were into mountain biking. What do you think about e-bikes? Let me ask you this, because I got to see one in person, and then I was informed that I actually saw an e-motorcycle. Those are the coolest things I've ever seen. It's so cool.
Yeah, I've being that I absolutely hate going up hills. I think it's great. I've rode one once though. I'm trying to do it, man, a little bit for exercise. But I raced BMX when I was a kid, so I still like to go out there on the trail and kind of dick around and have fun. So yeah. Man, if you're out there, it's a good time regardless of what you got.
Well, I saw like a few of these little e-motorcycle things. I mean, they're not much bigger than like a bicycle, really. I think like Trip Pullen and Cash LaCroix, they had them at the Windrock race, and they were climbing part of the bouncer course in their little e-motorcycles. And I was just like blown away at the amount of like instant power they have. And I'll tell you, and I'm going to ask you about this later. It's really got me thinking about like the EV electronic vehicle sector, how it will eventually bleed into side-by-sides and all that kind of fun stuff. But before we get there, tell me, you mentioned building an overlanding vehicle or a big scale vehicle to have pretty much go anywhere and take the side-by-side behind. Where's your favorite place that you travel to?
Man, being that I do a decent amount of desert racing and I live in North Carolina, which I have lived here my whole life.
That is not close.
I like the desert. I guess just because it's a change of scenery. Like it a lot though.
So are you more of like an open desert kind of guy, or like the hammers? What kind of desert fills the void?
Man, I like it all. I'll have fun anywhere.
So I've never been to the desert, and I've done strictly like East Coast woods wheeling. If you had to give me like a couple pieces of knowledge or advice, and I'm thinking about going to Moab this summer. What would the advice you'd give me, whether it be for my machine or for me? Like, what's something that you think would be beneficial for me to know?
Oh, Well, I mean, going to a place like Moab is awesome. Been there really only once, actually. It was right after a Best in the Desert race, and I was hauling everything back to North Carolina. We jumped out and went out to Moab. Went to Top of the World. Best of the Desert car in Moab obviously is not the most ideal vehicle to have.
Yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
but but I mean, it's capable. It's always capable. So I while I go out there and race on a personal level, to go out there and play and have fun without having a timeline to race and to prep a vehicle and to do things. Other than that, I really don't get out there. So, man, my advice is not going to be too full of experienced things aside from racing.
Yeah.
King of the Hammers, that the whole lake bed deal out there, the rocks outside, that lake bed deal is something to experience. I mean, it is unlike anything else. So it's just going to depend on kind of what kind of toy you're taking out there, and whether you want to tear stuff up going fast or going slow.
So let me ask you, how did you get your started in the off-road world? Because you have made a huge staple in the UTV industry, specifically with the Can-Am machines. But where did it all start for you?
Man, so when I was 17, my first vehicle was a 72 FJ40. Um, in a
Cool.
small block, SM465 205. It's on 35-inch Swampers. I was a high school kid, so that was the cool stuff to have.
Dude, that's like the go-to.
Yeah, and it was awesome, man. That's the foundation of everything that I've done was that vehicle. I've always had a good amount of mechanical knowledge, but never, I guess never really the funds, right? And that's what a lot of us, that's how a lot of the people in the industry start. We have some know-how. We don't have a lot of money to take it anywhere else. So, learned how to work on stuff from a young age. That led me, at the time, I was working at a machine shop, rebuilding screw machines and stuff like that. So, was doing mechanical stuff early on, but led into a mechanic position at Toyota. So I worked at the dealership for about 3 or 4 years before I started the shop. So I have a deep mechanical background. And as the off-road stuff progressed, it's kind of where the fab stuff kind of picked up and changed some things, changed the dynamic of what I did into more of the sheet metal, the welding, the tube bending, the fitting, all of that stuff.
So, was there one point where you went from having, a full stock body Toyota to, okay, now we're going to like a full size rig tube chassis, or did you at some point just make the transition like a half hybrid little truggy?
Yeah. It started with the kind of the truggy aspect of things. Man, so CT, the whole reason for the CT in the name is the original business name was Carolina Truggies way back when. So that started in 2007, and kind of a well-known vehicle that I built. I built the Killer Crutch JK that went on the cover of Crawl magazine at the end of 2010.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was really the first way over the top built JK. Tons, Hemi, coilovers, kind of the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna pull up a picture of it really quickly because I actually remember looking at this thing and thinking to myself, the cool thing about it was there was a lot of Jeep left, and I thought that was something that really gets missed in a lot of these conversions. Now, let me see if I can get this going here. Got my kids kicking me right in my mouse arm here. All right, there we go. That's it, right?
Yeah.
So,
You see the Carolina Truggies across the top of the windshield. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I like I said, is you kept a lot of the Jeep here, but how much of the internal, like, I see you've got some really interesting like boat side sliders there, a style that isn't normally in the Jeep world, because actually that's where I got my start, was all in Jeep stuff like that. And I see a lot of the Can-Ams nowadays, you guys are making that kind of full boat sided look to it. What's going on underneath that thing?
Oh man, so it's a stock chassis. It's a stock JK frame. Body, for what's left of it, is the same. It's got a Hemi in it. Underside of the frame, aside from having the larger transmission, it's got an Atlas in it. Man, this was like 12 years ago. I don't remember all the details to this thing.
Yeah.
It's it's a badass Jeep. The guy still owns it. It's still local. But man, underside of this thing, it's really just it has the sliders or the boat sides from a protection standpoint, but like we didn't have to hack into the body to raise anything up. It was really just smoothing the transition from the bottom of the frame up to the side of the body to where, the thing could get drug all over the place and not do any damage.
Yeah, so that's something that I feel like is missed because a lot of times people will just run like a kicker that keeps trees from going out in between the body of the car and the rear tire. But why not like just give it first off, it polishes off the entire look of the thing, makes it look less, industrial, I guess is the right way to say it. But also,
Right.
You'd imagine if you're going to drag it, why leave holes and spaces between bars to have that issue? That's something that I've always really liked about it. It just, like I said, it kind of polishes it, makes it a little bit more of a complete add-on. But this is pretty cool. Now, I have a question here, just a little side note. Those are the old spider lock bead locks, right?
Yes.
Is that still around? Because when I got started with off-roading in like 2011, 12 area, those were like the dream, man. If you had those bead lock rings, it was like you were hardcore. Are they still around? Is that still a thing? I've been so disconnected from the Jeep world for so long.
Man, I have to be honest, I really don't know. I would hope somebody picked it up because it was a good setup.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It seems pretty strong. But anyways, you start here, you go move to the truggy side of things. When did you start getting into the UTV market?
2013 was when we officially started transitioning from working on Jeeps and four-wheel drive stuff to going full into side-by-side stuff. When the original Maverick came out, the OG Maverick, that was when it all changed. Before then, 2009, I was racing GNCC with a buddy of mine in a Kawasaki Teryx. Fantastic thing, but man, we're we're talking about the golf cart days. That learned a lot with that thing, big bore kit, cage, a ton of stuff. But the side by sides were still so early in the evolution of things that that's where the whole. So we actually had a race way probably 2011, 2012. And there were a bunch of us standing around, and we decided that it would be funny as hell to strap like a golf cart, like a golf bag to the back of the car, and run around the track just because the kind of the stereotypical things that were said about them. So yeah, that was the start of it. Racing a Teryx, and then 2013 transitioning over into starting to manufacture side-by-side parts.
So the big question for me is, why not Polaris?
I like to be different.
I get it. So I like that's an interesting statement because I like to be different with the CanAms. That used to be, I would hands down agree with you. But we're starting to reach this point where that's like focusing on CanAms. It's not the unusual anymore. We're starting to see a big market shift. How do you feel about that? I think that you guys are have definitely given that movement some momentum too here recently, especially.
Yeah, the roots are deep for us in the CanAm stuff. Being that we started with CanAm's first sports side by side, anybody that's been brand loyalist to CanAm, they know who we are. They know what we make. It's helped a lot carry through the transition of models over from the original CanAm Maverick over to the XDS, the turbo car, and then again over into the X3. So. While I like to bounce around and work on different vehicles, some that are not as mainstream, it's been a huge transition shift. There's not a lot of Polarises on the podium anymore. It's the majority of it's CanAm stuff.
So let's talk about that, and we're kind of jumping ahead. Well, actually, let's just talk about it now. Why? What has happened between the machines? Is it the machines? Is it the driver? Is it factory support? Because CanAm has been, not only winning, they've been blowing it out of the water, not even close, no competition.
Yeah, at the end of the day, no matter what we build for anybody, there are certain guys out there that can drive that will dominate no matter what they're in.
Right.
Kyle, that dude is fast no matter what he's in. He's fast as hell.
Yeah.
So I would say that I think CanAm, once they get into an industry, they push a little bit harder. I think they do push to jump in and be the top. Polaris they made a big push. They got to the top, and it appears that they had their top spot for a while. They still have market dominance. I mean, regardless of what everybody posts on Facebook and social media and everything else, from a numbers standpoint, marketing wise, going into the data of it all, Polaris is still top dog.
Right.
And they'll probably hold that for a while. Now, getting into the racing and kind of the performance, high-end, go-fast stuff, yeah, CanAm's gonna. I mean, they're up there, but man, we've all been looking at stuff, leaked pictures from Polaris for so many years, saying, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Is it going to be the end of July? Is it going to be Camp Razor? Like, when is it coming? When is the next car going to come? And, year after year, I think 3 years now, since the X3 came out in 2017, everybody's like, man, when's it happening? And nobody's seen anything.
Yeah, and I feel like the Pro XP was a really underwhelming release. It's to me like I didn't even really hear that much when they released the Turbo S. Like, it was just real casual. They kind of just slid it out, and then the Pro XP comes out, and it kind of falls flat to a certain degree. But I've been in it. It's an awesome machine. It just seems like they were like, we'll put this out, and then we'll push. They're waiting for something else to like do the massive push behind, and it feels like it's just been delayed to a point where it's kind of like, okay, like what's happening? Why are we, we're intermittently sitting somewhere that doesn't make sense.
Right, for sure. And I guess just because I am known for being in all of the CanAm stuff, just to kind of go back on something, that car that I took to Moab, all the best in the desert stuff that I was doing was racing with a buddy of mine, Bill Zemak, in a Polaris. So I was in a 4-seat Polaris chassis that, of course, we built. And so, I mean, I do have the Polaris experience of tinkered around in that a fair share. But, I mean, even dealing with their race department on things,
it's rough. Like, call it what it is. I have gotten some experience dealing with their race team. Holy smokes, it's so difficult to get, they always say, like, give an inch and they'll take a mile. Holy smokes, dude, they don't give half an inch. They are rough on everybody.
Yeah. And factory backing for top tier racers is just, it's kind of got thinned out a little bit. I mean, it's still good. There's still factory racers out there that are bad, fast guys. I mean, Sims is, another dude's fast. So I mean, there's still a handful. It's just that support, they kind of lost their aggressiveness in the racing world.
Well, I also think too, and I kind of talked a little bit about this on my KOH rant after the UTV race. They have a lot. I would probably say 5 to 6 guys or girls that race 4,400 as their primary, and they use the UTV as a warm up, and they're not afraid to come out and say that. And then you have, again, this is coming from someone who's not versed in desert racing, best in the desert, Worx, anything like that. But you have these, kind of token characters that they support, if that makes any sense. And, just kind of like for show type stuff. And it's like, wow, there's such a missing demographic here of supporting names just because they're names, and like they just guys. And you would think, being because I agree and have definitely understood that Polaris is the top dog and has a lot of momentum. It's hard to steal that top dog momentum right now, just because they make a really nice, cheap machine that you can get into. Like a 1000, awesome. Right off the shelf, someone can do pretty much everything with that. And it's good and they're happy. But, it just seems really weird on the race factory team side because, someone who's on the East Coast, I have never heard of 80% of them. And I don't ever see them. I've never seen them at events. I never see them ever. And it just seems weird, but, kind of is what it is. I guess my real question that follows that is, what do you think the correlation between winning races and consumer, like a rise in purchasing product, what is the correlation there? And why would CanAm dump more money into the race program if the correlation is not as good as people say it is?
Not to get into the politics of the manufacturers too much, because obviously we're heavy in one.
Right. Yeah. Please. I'm tied to nobody.
Right. Well, I think I'll kind of roll this into what I do too. I don't do a lot of marketing in the sense that I'm not posting ads out everywhere. I sponsor a handful of guys, and those guys that do well, I use their performance with our parts as my kind of marketing deal. And I think, the best way to market to a certain demographic is definitely throw a car at some top guys and let them go out there and beat the daylights out of it and let it live and let them win. Right. And then on the flip side of that, like you're saying, you have a handful of guys that are big names that are not racing. They're like, oh man, this guy's got a car, that's cool. If he has one, then they're trying to drive off of that a little bit.
Right.
In terms of what's better than the other, I don't know, but lobbing a car and a bunch of guys that are fast, putting it in their hands, that's going to be the best way, in my opinion, to sell a vehicle and to push a brand, which is exactly what CanAm's doing now with the Miller brothers and Kyle and
you couldn't have picked a better group of guys. Like you could not have picked those guys and the chemistry that you can see between all of them. It's awesome. I wonder, and had someone ask me, how much do you think that Polaris paid Casey Curry to make the switch? And I was like, I can't even imagine, because how could you make that switch at that time? And it just seemed really strange. But that's a head scratcher for me.
yeah, that's a good question.
But anyways, moving on. What is working with a race team? So you as the manufacturer, do you guys just whip up some of your standard parts and put them on the car? Do you guys look at a stock X3 chassis, add a reinforcement? How does the product, or the process rather, go when Kyle comes to you and says, hey, I've got a car and I want to race this particular car at the Hammers? How does that process start, end, and finish?
So in the early days, so we'll say end of 16, beginning of 2017, we would build a bolt-on car, meaning that, a cage would bolt onto it. We would take, a handful of catalog items, throw them on the car. And, you can look at a car and you can point out obvious weak links. Say, there's a particular point in the chassis. You're like, oh man, that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. But there are other parts of that chassis that you don't know what is going to be a problem until the end of the season. And you can strip a car back down and you can say, all right, we've got some issues here. So that leads into the evolution of it all. Now, current days. So now we're 2021. So for instance, we'll stick with what Kyle's doing. So, he's running King of the Hammers, got a Texplex car and got a Champ car. So obviously a short course car is going to be dramatically different than the King of the Hammers car. So King of the Hammers car.
Yeah.
Okay. So short course, that it needs to be as light as it can be. It needs to be extremely rigid though. So when this thing dives into a corner, feedback, suspension, everything's doing what it needs to do. King of the Hammers car, it needs to drag over everything. It needs to have the shit beat out of it all day long. Yeah. And it needs to hold up. It's a totally different line of catalog parts. A Hammers car, box suspension, high clearance, sacrifice a little bit of weight for the sake of having a lot of strength. Short course car, no need to boat side a short course car. So, we're talking about and I haven't scaled one of his cars once it's been all done. So we're going to throw out a round number of, say, there's a 2,000-pound King of the Hammers car, spare tire on it, 35s and all that stuff. Or you got a 1,600-pound, short course car. Hammers car, 35-inch tall tires, suspension, big. The whole car's big. Short course car, 28-inch tall tires. small, throw it around the corner, super low ride height, sit him on the floor of the car. So
Right.
there's a lot of things that change between a desert car, short course car, King of the Hammers car, and all that stuff.
Now, that's awesome information. First off, thank you, because that is there's people out there thinking about their machine, and they're like, "What kind of riding do I do? And is there an adjustment that he just said that I can kind of gravitate towards?" Because a lot of what you're describing is, kind of theoretical practice. Like theoretically, a short course car should be lower seats lower, everything's lower, minimal suspension travel, real hard, stiff, all those things. And those are, general ideas. But when it comes to actual implementing those ideas, it can look a bunch of different ways. And I think that's always really cool to see how people will interpret what you say and take it and do their own little spin on it. But let me ask you this. What is your favorite kind of car to build? Do you think that you guys build a car that does one thing really, really well? Are you guys primarily, obviously had success at Hammers or your short course cars? I mean, is there a favorite that you have?
Man, the car that I just posted up, my car.
Dude, that is mean.
Yeah, that car is everything I've wanted in an X3 since we've been building X3s.
Dude,
that is a car that we can go in and do the over the top things that we can do. So, a lot of stuff here. We're a unique shop. We're a unique shop in the sense that we can do almost everything from start to finish. So we're obviously doing sheet metal work for the A-arms, tube work, everything. But we have CNC machines. I have an engineer that's in here. We have a 3D scanner. So as we go through the process, we can build out a car, scan it into the computer, and build a lot of stuff that is just not possible to make by hand. Yeah.
Absolutely bananas, man.
Yeah.
Like it looks like such a big car, but at the same time, it is so, the actual chassis, the actual car seems so light, like it has a carbon fiber look to it almost.
Yeah. So, in this car, both sides exactly the same as Kyle's Hammer's car. Reinforcement throughout the frame, everything. The only thing that is really different on this car from his is the fabricated B-pillars that have the shock mount built into it in the back half of the car. We cut the bottom of the car, or I guess the top of the car off, and started at the bottom and worked our way up. We didn't utilize nearly as much chassis as we typically do.
Okay. Man, that's wild. I'm just looking at the actual boat side in that picture. You guys were able to clear quite a bit off of there.
Yeah, it's coming up 6 inches on the side.
Dang, man.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah. So just for perspective, you're adding 6 inches to the outer side of the car, in translation to the tire. You're gaining so much clearance there in the section that is, most vulnerable other than the very bottom of the absolute belly there. That's wild, man. What a good look.
Yeah. And that's a fuel cell car. That car was built. Kind of a little bit of my spiel on this thing is this is the ultimate X3. It will do anything and everything well. It will not. That is not a short course car like that.
Right,
that
right. I would have to agree.
But yeah, everything else on this car is top shelf. Everything.
Man, it's crazy. And if you're listening to just the audio version, I highly recommend that you go check out the YouTube where we're actually scrolling through the pictures right here. And I want to ask too, go ahead and give your plug for your social media while we're sitting here looking at it. If somebody's listening and they want to go find it, it's CT Race Worx on Facebook. And is your Instagram just CT Race Worx?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, my question for you, if the car that can do it all, you've got a big rear mounted radiator here. Do you have any issues with seeing what's behind you? I know that's not a situation that, typically you like to take into account, but anything for like trail ride or anything like that, any concerns for seeing what's behind you?
Yeah. So we have the race ready spring mirrors on this thing. So, look out driver side, passenger side, and we've got mirrors. Is it going to be, like having a rear view mirror and looking out of the back of the car? No. but you do have visibility. You know, a lot of the times when you're trail riding, you're just trying to see your buddy's headlights behind you to make sure they're still back there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, side mirrors, they do a good job. They do a really good job.
I'm looking at how you mounted those rear shocks. Like you said, they're actually back on the B pillar. What was the reasoning behind that? Did you guys find a flaw in the stock location, or is there just a giant benefit in having them back on the B pillar?
We wanted to make something, you know, that was really cool and looked good and was really strong. You know, I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit of an aesthetics thing in this.
Sure.
But that whole combination, you know, and you can see the coverage that thing grabs on the main runner of the roll cage as well. So from a surface area standpoint, there's a lot more strength overhead just by the amount of surface area that's grabbed by that tube. So you run a single B pillar tube, you come up, you know, if you have a point of contact up there, you know, you can kind of crush around the tube a little bit. I mean, we're talking about bad situation here, which is uncommon, but there's a lot of strength and rigidity in grabbing a tube all the way through its bend.
That was actually what I was going to ask you after this was, you know, how much strength do you think is gained there? Because you're not only plating, you know, the sides to actually give you the mounting point, but you plated the whole front of that B pillar. And I'm assuming to the top right there too. I mean, the top is the roll bar for the cage. I would assume that, you know, there's tremendous strength in that as well, because one of the common things that I hear is, you know, when you have an X3 that you'd like to race, you need to go and reinforce the chassis in certain locations. I know that there's kits out there for that, but you know, it seems like if you went with something like this, you know, I would say that from the B pillar back, I mean, you've got to be pretty sturdy.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing with the opening doors as well, is on the race cars, we utilize a lot of chassis strength by that upper door bar. Okay. And by having opening doors, we needed to do some extra stuff to make sure this car stays true and rigid the whole way through.
Yeah. So now this is your personal car, right?
Yep. Yeah. And okay. I'm actually going to sell that car.
Okay. So that's what I thought. I couldn't remember if I saw it for sale or not. Why sell it?
Oh man, you know, the industry's hot. I've got some more equipment coming in here, and I need to. I want more machinery.
Okay, gotcha. So speaking of machinery, before we move on, tell me a little bit about your business, how it transformed into the high quality parts that you guys make. Tell me about what parts you do make, and what do you take your most pride in?
Our craftsmanship, man, sets us apart. Like our welds, our fit and finish on everything is on a different level compared to a lot of companies in the industry, for sure. Yeah. Like there's no mistaking that whatsoever. So, you know, chassis, suspension, that's our good stuff. That's what we're known for. You know, we build bumpers, cages. So the dynamic in the shop is I've got a team of guys up front in the office. I've got mechanics here. Really, all of my guys are top shelf. You know, as much as I can say, you know, Alex, or people tell me, you know, Alex, you guys make really good stuff. My guys out back are the ones that are making it. You know, I train them through, set the standard, show them what to do and everything else. But those guys are the ones that are killing it every single day. And when I say my guys are good, I'll put them up against anybody from a skill standpoint, without a doubt. So I've got mechanics, I've got machinists, welders, fab guys, and we make everything here, shy of having a laser in here to cut parts. Like I said, we have the CNC machines and that help produce a lot of our, not just billet parts that we sell, but also components within our welded assemblies. So we're able to make some things that other shops typically wouldn't be able to make, because we can handle production from multiple aspects, being the fab part, the forming of the material, machining, all that kind of stuff. Awesome. But yeah, we're most known for pretty much suspension stuff. That's where we shine.
Yeah, especially in the picture of the rig that you just posted. I'm looking at those box arms. Holy smokes, dude. So I'll go ahead and I have tried, I would say 90% of the Razor suspension manufacturers. And it's so funny. I tell people all the time, I will try something on purpose that is bad so that I can, when I tell you that it's bad, I can
Right.
tell you from front-hand experience. And I'll tell you this right now. I have a set of, and please listen, those listeners,
I know where
please
this is
listen to what
going.
I'm saying. Okay. I have a set of Super ATV box arms, okay, on my machine right now. Knowing what they are, did it on purpose. Have they held up for me? Yeah, they're still on the car. But my goodness, when you look at something like what you guys make, and then I go outside and I look where, the boxed arms, like the actual sheet metal is like lined up, but the weld is like on one side of the arm. It really does shine a really bright light on what you guys do, because I will say that none of my products I have ever run look quite like that. I'll say that. I'll say that. And I've tried every single manufacturer for suspension components and razors. So I'm going to need you guys to start making some razor parts.
We have a whole catalog of razor parts that we have gone through, engineered, developed, that are done. We can't keep up with what we have,
Okay.
which is kind of the need to bring more equipment in.
Yeah.
You were talking about having a hectic schedule. I had, building inspectors and stuff in here. I got to bring more power into the building. It's
Wow.
it's been kind of wild here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot. We have a lot that's on deck that, people say, oh, well, we haven't seen a new part from you for a while. Well, dude, we haven't. We
Yeah.
have a lot. We can't release a ton because we won't be able to keep up, and we can't.
Yeah.
We need to be able to produce more, and that's coming very, very soon.
Yeah. It's so funny, and this is totally off topic references. I watched an episode of The Office where they have like a seminar, and one of the guys, he gets roped into a timeshare, and he's like, well, next thing I know, I bought the product and this and that. So he's like, I'm going to do the same thing. And one of the people came in, and he was looking for information on manageable growth, and that is the first time I had ever heard of or thought about the idea about growing too quickly and having too much demand. And it sounds so funny, but every single person that I've had on the podcast within the last year, being a manufacturer, has just told me, we don't have product, we can't make it fast enough, we can't do this and that. And it has to be so encouraging for another manufacturer, or just the off-road market in general, looking towards the future, to have. There's my son, just kind of, he's saying, I need some parts too. He is 100% asleep, and he's just trying to get in the conversation here.
Nice.
But it's got to be a bright future for you as you look long term. How long do you see yourself being so hands-on in the business? I mean, I know that you guys are thriving right now, but long term, where do you think that the UTV market goes? Where do you think CT Race Worx goes?
Every time I've said something, the future shows something different. So I've tried to forecast this time and time again. Man, I really don't know. At some point, UTVs are going to evolve to the point to where, they're out running sand cars and everything out in dunes. You're going to start having lightweight UTVs that are, again, king of the hammers, that are going to keep up with 800 horsepower, 40-inch tall tire Ultra 4 cars.
I couldn't agree more.
So it will hit that price point at some time, though, to where there's going to be, people are going to walk the fine line of saying, all right, UTVs are going to, at some point in time, if they keep evolving, are going to hit a $40,000-$50,000 a car, price. And that's what's going to separate things a little bit. Where's it lead? I don't know, but everything's going to continue to progress. I think the cars will start getting refined a little bit more, maybe creature comfort, some fit and finish stuff. Not that fit and finish is a problem, but we'll start seeing variations of cars. Utilities are starting to have heat and AC in them. Might start seeing some of that, probably not in sport models. But all of the little kinks that people like me jump in and fix in a chassis, those things will start getting refined by manufacturers, and then people start getting faster, more powerful cars, and
Yeah.
guys will continue to run out of talent with really, really good cars.
So that's my next question is, you mentioned the price point stuff being not a barrier for entry necessarily, but there is if you were looking at it like a graph of popularity, machines sold versus technology put in machines, at some point those intersect and you have the perfect price point, whether it be 25, 30, 35. I would be curious to know if one of the, big manufacturers would say, hey, this is the car that we sell the most of, here's et cetera, et cetera. CanAm, I mean, last year came out to Smart Shock technology. A 4-seat CanAm's like 40 grand, like right out of the gate.
Yeah, they're getting up there. There does reach a point with an off-road vehicle as well to where you start throwing too much technology into it, and then you start getting some reliability issues out of it, and things become unreliable. That's going to be something over time that's going to have to be watched too. Electric shocks, smart shock stuff. You say, oh man, if a rock comes up and knocks, breaks the connector on the solenoid or something like that, what happens? So there could be some things in the future that could, be a hindrance as well.
Yeah.
But
now let me ask you this. Do you think that, we're seeing the big push now in smart shock technology being the things that manufacturers have really highlighted in the last few years, outside of power, because, there's always the, you can never have enough power argument. Outside of power, where do you think, where can they improve?
Yeah, I mean, you get to a point where you can outpower a chassis too. So you
Right.
can throw all the power in the world and it's not going to do stuff. It's not going to perform at speed. So yeah, they're, geometry and suspension, scrub, things like that.
That's
things
true.
that a lot of talk that Robbie's had on the speed car.
That's what I was going to ask
suspension comes to mind. And I've been up to Robbie's shop and looked at that car, and that car, once they get that thing nailed down from a production standpoint, that thing will be sick. There is seeing that thing in person is a whole different thing.
Is it going to be real?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, his shop's 20 minutes up the road from me. He's invited us over there, and I've gone into his shop a handful of times to check it out. Yeah, it's
Why
wild.
did I think that he was like in Arizona or something like that?
He tests out in Parker all the time.
I guess that's what it is. I really thought that he was like, down there near the shock therapy guys, and they were all because just like yourself, he's in the desert all the time. I figured that that's where he was. So that was kind of where part of my question was going here. The speed UTV car, where does that land? Because, if the horsepower lines up the way he says it will, and the price point, personally, I'd be happy as a Billy Goat, having a $40,000 car. I don't have to fix anything out of the gate. I've got the power I need. For someone who's going to primarily stay on the East Coast, the only thing I'm thinking about is, reducing the width of the body of the actual chassis, and then I'm done. I'm good forever.
Yeah. From what I've seen, all the prototype stuff, the car, he is thought out everything.
That's awesome. It's so encouraging.
Man, it's with production getting pushed back on this thing. I've some of the groups are a little rough. Some things are understandably that way. However, when the car does get released, I think it will be worth it, especially if the production's level can hit the level of quality from. All right, so there's a difference between billet everything as a prototype vehicle to going to cast assemblies that then get machined afterwards. There's that. That's a big thing between a prototype car and a manufactured vehicle. Man, if he can keep fit and finish up on this car from a production standpoint, that thing will be a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Now, is he doing his own manufacturing? Do they have their own setup, or are they going to outsource manufacturing to like Mexico or something like that?
From what I understand, it'll be made in Texas.
Okay, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So my next question then, involving the progression of these cars, is kind of Texas related. We have obviously the huge boom with Tesla. We have the huge, I wouldn't say huge, I'll say very interesting boom with Nikola and their, $85,000 car that they have, the UTV. EV, Polaris last month releases it was so foggy on what was new about the machine. They released a new EV version that's a more trail oriented EV car. And for those who don't know, I'm talking about electronic vehicles. What is that the future? I think that's it, man. I think we move to EV and all of a sudden you get crazy torque, crazy horsepower. I mean, and the Tesla Plaid Roadster, the Tesla Plaid S model, which is basically like their regular car, is 2.6 seconds 0 to 60.
Electric torque is dumb. It's ridiculous. After Hammers, we had I gotta figure out how to say this without giving all of this away, because this is so
I love this. That is my favorite thing to hear.
we had engineers from an electric vehicle company after King of the Hammers happened. They called us and to talk about kind of X3 stuff and what it would take to build an EV side by side that could perform King of the Hammers, just because it's just so violent and punishing on everything. So I will say that aside from what was the other vehicle, the Nikola
Nikola.
I've seen this thing for years, and it's been a prototype for years, and that's another thing that we're like, oh, cool, we've seen it, but it'll probably never ever happen. This is a big name, though, that definitely has the capabilities of making really cool stuff. You have some problems of dumping fuel in a vehicle versus having to charge or replace an entire battery pack. So again, we're going to go into kind of play the devil's advocate in this and say, all right, well, let's support a bunch of race guys. How are we going to do this? Well, power's not going to be a problem, because I mean, from a like horsepower torque standpoint, that won't be an issue. It'll be easier to do suspension, because if you do wheel motors, you're not killing CVs and diffs anymore. So that's a lot different aspect there. But the battery
car. This is the Nikola car. Obviously, this is quote unquote the prototype. They have released and pricing, and first off, it's an enclosed car. Terrible decision. Pricing, where was it? It was $85,000 the last time I looked. So way outside the range. However, oh man, I wish it would show me. I guess it's just going to take me there. However, they do offer the military version, and the military version seems to expect to take off. Like the numbers here: 150-mile range, which off-road, that's awesome. But anyways, $85,000 looks to be the entry-level pricing here. And again, not necessarily the most groundbreaking technology on the actual car itself, just, kind of food for thought. So I just wanted to throw that up there just so you had an idea, a quick refresher on that car. I think I may have lost you. You still there? There you go. You're back.
Oh, yeah. I floated away there for a second.
That's okay. You're back. So I'd left off just giving you a quick refresher on that Nikola car. They've got a military production car, it looks like, and they claim to have a production general consumer. But again, at $85,000, it's not an option.
Yeah, and 150-mile range sounds great. Your desert guys can run that easily. I mean, Vegas to Reno is 550 miles. We run it in 13 hours, 12, 13 hours. So East Coast guys, we could run a hard 100 miles in a day. I don't know what you do. I mean, when we go up to Hatfield, McCoy and stuff like that, I mean, if we run at a decent pace and don't stop too much, you can run 100, 120 miles in a day.
Pretty easy. Yeah.
Right. So, it's cool. I guess I'm not as hip on the whole EV thing as a lot of people are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that need to get figured out. A lot.
Yeah. Now, I'll say this. I'm not necessarily like going to be singing EV from the rooftops. That's not my point here. My point
Right.
being is I've listened, and I'll just come out with it. I listened to Elon talk quite a bit, probably 5 or 6 hours in total. And just the numbers, I think that, if there is someone, I'll say this, if Tesla can walk into the conversation, they have a lot of the technology on the battery side figured out. They have technology on the motor figured out. It would just take the application to the chassis, right? So I don't know. There's a lot of potential there. And when he started throwing around horsepower numbers and 0 to 60 numbers, I was like, all right, something to have a discussion about for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my now, I've also seen in the past years at Hammers, they had these little half UTV, half 4400 hybrid cars. I think Ross Pilgreen, he had one floating around out there. What do you think about that hybrid version where the UTV gets bigger and, more power, obviously, with that? Do you think that that's going to happen, or are we going to stay small, nimble, and something like that?
I don't know. Again, I don't think that you can increase the size too terribly much, because what's separating you from a buggy at that
True.
point. Now what he's built has been awesome. I love seeing him built. I think it's awesome. I love guys that build that stuff for sure. From a production standpoint, though,
Right.
There's already been talk of cars getting pushed from 72 inches out to 74, 76. There's rumor of a car floating around 78. That is a big side by side.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah, so they'll have to reel it in. They won't be able to go much bigger than what they already are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all in all, your final thoughts, and we'll kind of get off topic because I've asked you a lot of questions that don't really have answers, and it's kind of one of those things where when I ask people these, I just see if I can reel anything out, or if anybody has an interesting take on them. But future side by sides, bigger power. You think that's the next step?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. More power,
so.
more durability. Like I said, I mean, just performance overall, and that's not from an engine. We're talking about reliability within drivetrain setup. So I do think that belts will disappear. I think that will inevitably have to happen as power increases. Now you have the fighting argument that sleds make gobs of power and they run on belts. I think that we'll start seeing that refinement. And then again, goes back to saying the chassis will have to be able to handle the power that's put out for sure.
Gotcha. Exciting stuff. Man. So well, let me ask you this before we got you to talk about the future. You guys work on big cars. Friend of the show, Jay Calloway, dropped his 4400 car in for some maintenance and things like that. How much on the big car side are you guys still doing?
As little as possible. Mainly because, one of the things of swapping over to side-by-sides is I was tired of working on really heavy rusted stuff. Not to say that that every car comes in as rusted or is full of problems. Jay's car obviously is not a rust bucket by any means, but we do work for a handful of people. We'll still do Jeep lift kits and stuff like that, but more is what I'll kind of refer to as gravy work. Jay is a totally different aspect here because we still man, Jay's awesome and his cars are a lot of fun to work on. And I've been doing work for Jay for probably probably 10 years. So I've known him for a while, but his Ultra 4 car's in here. We're going to go through and race prep that thing and address a couple little small issues, but typically if there's a problem that nobody else can figure out, the car comes here most of the time, and he's about 45 minutes away from us, and we work on big stuff, just not like we do the side-by-sides.
Sure, absolutely. Now I want to talk about East Coast racing. I think the only real East Coast racing we have here is the Pro Rock Endurance Racing. I know we have GNCC, we have a few of those kind of mid-east type organizations, but do you guys or any of your drivers do they do the Pro Rock stuff? It seems to be the best we can get over here.
No, because short course racing is getting all of the attention.
Okay.
Every, GNCC not being a thing anymore for UTVs, all
Yeah.
of the, and it goes back again to manufacturers wanting to sponsor national events, big event stuff that's got backing payouts to where it's going to attract a lot of drivers in there. And there's not really a woods platform out there that's able to do that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. And look, obviously I
Yeah.
build side by sides. This is what I do for a living. Love it. I enjoy it. I can't keep up with every race series that's out there.
Dude.
The Pro Rock, awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I was racing, whenever I was, running around the track in the Terex and the OG Mav
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I love that. Again, though, woods racing, East Coast racing just isn't too hot. I would love to see somebody do a once a year race and just pick 150 miles of Hatfield McCoy and just let people
Dude.
just get after it. Like I would get back into racing behind the wheel for that, for
Yes.
sure. That would be
Yes.
awesome.
Yes. I think that's probably the biggest complaint is that, I'm going to Wildcat this weekend for the Southern Rock Racing Series. I'm doing broadcasting for those guys now. And I look at that park and I'm like, you've got some really cool trails. You've got like the Jurassic Park vibes. You've got these big open dirt. And then you kind of scale it out to, anything else, basically like a crossbar ranch race. And you're like, it just doesn't compare. You just don't have the open capabilities to really get some speed going. You don't have the size, if you're going to run a Wildcat, you're going to run, it's going to be a 40-mile race and it's going to be, 10 laps. And it's just not the same. And I think that if someone like, I know Mid-America is like got their big track and their big course. And, even still, that's kind of not exactly what I think you and I are shooting for, because my dream is, TWRA land, Hatfield McCoy, like let me go blaze through the woods, have a big horseshoe track somewhere and go run, 70 miles out and then 70 miles back. But is it too much to orchestrate here? Because it seems like the land's just not continuous enough to make it happen.
Yeah, I think permits on the East Coast are a little bit harder to pull than permits on the West Coast with BLM land out there, with versus service forestry stuff over here. But I would assume that it's got to be more difficult because nobody's done it yet. But I don't know. I would love to see it. I know a lot of people are out there looking for something like that to happen.
Yeah, I know. I actually interviewed the guy from Kentucky cross country. And he does, it's all small scale. I think he had one UTV race last year. It's mostly MX ATV stuff. I would love to see something like that come up because personally, like I don't want to go bounty hill my UTV. I don't want to go do stuff like that. I don't want to, rip front diffs out and blow sides of the case out on my transmission. It's just not something I'm like interested in. I'd much rather, go get in a long distance race and take the slow lane in my little Razor and have a great time doing it, So
yeah, definitely.
I'm going to need someone who listens to the show. I think we're doing right now, right before the baby came, we were doing something like, like 40,000 a week or so. So out of the 40,000, someone somewhere has to have a lead where we can get something set up because it would be awesome. But
put it together.
Yeah, absolutely. They will come. I'll come. I'll be there. I'll race. I'll do everything. However, moving on, what's the future look like for you? What's got you excited? Obviously, you guys are having some big business growth. You've got plenty of stuff to release. You guys are, working with the top names in racing. But, is there a handful of things that have you really, really excited?
Outside of the UTV stuff, I kind of talked a little bit on the expedition rig that I'm building. I think that might turn into something. We might make a push to maybe do some expedition stuff, and I'm not building like a camper trailer. I mean, I have an M10 1079 LMTV. So this is a big 2.5 ton cab over military truck, 48-inch tall tires, full-time four-wheel drive. It's got a box in the back. We've outfitted the box with solar. a dozen lithium batteries, and that's all posted up on my stuff online. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that again, to kind of go back into the 3D scanning stuff, is we've scanned that whole truck into the computer. So we've been able to kind of do some wild stuff. So like my bed assembly runs on linear actuators and lifts it from the ceiling to the floor. So, since space on these vehicles is always something to be aware of, that it's constant workaround, especially for me. I'm 6'5". Like I've
that's huge, man. How do you fit in? How do you fit in these machines? See, that's why you're an X3 guy, is because you fit in there. Me, I'm like 5'9", 5'10" on a good day. I get an X3, can't see crap, super comfortable, but I don't fit.
Yeah. So, my size in all of these vehicles is kind of a tough thing, but back in the truck, we've got to be able to have our space, and you have a bed in a truck like this, and you got to have room to move around, eat, cook food, use the bathroom, shower, everything. But we've just been able to, with the scanner technology that we have and the CNC machines, we can make a lot of stuff that I dreamed of. Like I never thought when I started this thing when I was 21 years old back in 2007 that I was going to have 16 guys out there, machines down there, and have the capabilities to build all this stuff. So again, we talked about kind of forecasting the business and what I see in the future. Again, man, I'm a pretty aggressive person in business. But it gives us the ability to build some stuff that a lot of others can't. So we might get into the expedition stuff. We do a lot of reverse engineering with the scanner stuff for other businesses. So a lot of what we do is not just for CT Race Worx. CNC machines, we've done mold and dies for people from a machining standpoint. With the scanner stuff, we've reversed some stuff, made machined components for people, welded assemblies. So we kind of like job shop some stuff out for guys that need stuff to happen from start to finish. Man, aside from that, man, we're just going to keep rocking with the little golf carts now, with the UTVs, and see what it evolves into.
Yeah. So I want to ask too, just to make sure, is expedition and overland, are those interchangeable words in the off-road world?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I know, so I'm a part of the overland groups, because I really think it's cool when someone can actually have, shower, utilities, cooking, everything in their machine and go. And, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I think it's Tom Green, who's a comedian. And he went and bought one of those 1500 Ram, Sprinter van type things, did the whole, and he's so funny. Off-road people listening to this podcast had a stroke, because he was like, I got 10 feet in the sand and got stuck. And I'm like, oh God.
It's like, dude, you have no business being out there. But I think I heard what you listened to.
And it was a Rogan podcast. I'm a big Rogan guy. I love it. Love it. And dude, one thing that really kind of struck I don't know how to say it, just this old school chord in me was, he was talking about being out there at night with his dog. The only light he has was fire. And, he has electronic, capabilities, things like that. He does a podcast while he's out there, but just being able to be just far enough away from society and have peace and quiet and being able to see the stars, something about that got me. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, my friends, we go to do, Brimstone, Windrock, and we'll go ride 8 hours through TWR land, whatever it is. And we'll hang out for a while, go have lunch at a restaurant, mom and pop in the mountain. And then we'll come back at be back at 3 o'clock in the morning. But what if we could pack up all our gear and do it? And I think in my 2-seater, it just, logistically doesn't work to take all that gear. But if we had 4-seat rigs, I really think in an ideal situation with the UTV, maybe not. It's just not enough room to get everything you need out there. You have to go super primitive, I feel like.
Yeah, so one of my customers, Al Roden, he has a four-seat X3, and he
Yeah.
drove from Phoenix to my shop.
Oh my God. How?
And yeah, so he ran it's
Is it
like the
that
transatlantic trail, I believe is what it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
And this is a guy that's got like 30,000 miles on his X3. Like this
Dang,
is what
dude.
he does. He's gone from Arizona up to Canada, obviously back home. And yeah, dude, I mean, he's done the expedition thing. We built him a chassis car too, to where we got in, fixed a lot of weak links, and kind of built some storage into his car. Uh,
Yeah.
four seat car, four-seat car. Nobody else. He's got his two dogs with him. They sit in the back, and that four-seat car is loaded,
Yeah.
loaded, loaded. To make it
What a
happen, yeah, you're primitive. You're in a tent every night.
yeah.
But man, he does it, and it's incredible.
Part of me, I think I don't know if you feel this way, but I think like as I got married and obviously I've got a kid now who's chiming in here. Um,
Mhm.
you look back and there's not an envy to that lifestyle of being able to like not want to say like the bachelor life or anything, but like pack up, take your dogs, go. Now if I were to do something like that, I have to accommodate. I don't mind primitive, but now I got to think about my wife. I got to think about my 7-year-old daughter and like those things. And I'm like, man, what a interesting blessing to be able to go do something like that, to go out and find solace and be completely alone and really, I say rough it, but like, it kind of is what, you have a lot prepared and things like that. But
Mhm.
I have a very profound respect for people that can be alone with themselves like that, because one of the most trying things is when you're out there and like you want to, you think of something funny and you laugh and then like no one else is around you, and you're just like,
Right.
that drives some people crazy. And like, especially as attached to social media and everything else that people are these days, being able to go out and be in the alone, that's a skill that is not common anymore.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We do. I talked about doing camping and stuff like that. We do a camping
Yeah.
trip. We used to do it once a year.
Mhm.
We'd get dropped off on an island in Florida, about 2 miles off the coast, and we'd stay out there. I mean, it's all primitive stuff, and we'd be out there for about 5 days.
Dude.
And we had what we could take. We're trying to source wood off the island, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I've experienced that a little bit, it was kind of the drive for the overland stuff. Was I'm not old. I'm 35.
Yeah.
But
I'm 26. If that
oh,
makes sense.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we wanted to be able to take a little bit more with us and do stuff out
Yeah.
there camping. But yeah, I mean, being alone like that is a different dynamic. It is, especially, you got the creatures in the woods, if you're out there by yourself,
Yeah.
be prepared for it. But yeah, from the mental standpoint too, it is to not have human interaction for X amount of time that you're out there is a different thing.
Yeah. So, but we're barking over an hour here. Feel free to let me know when you need to go at any point. But can you tell me a little bit about being on an island in Florida for 5 days? That is not that. So whenever I tell people like, hey, what do you do outside the off-road world? They always casually miss over things like this. Like that's pretty unique. So tell me a little bit about it if you got time.
Yeah, there's a handful of us. Actually, Daniel, one of my guys here, he goes out there with us, and it's typically six of us, and
Mhm.
we pack up stuff, pack them a cooler. I've there's a lot of funny things that you learn when you can't go
Yeah.
shower, you can't do anything. Um, if anybody is interested in doing this, kind of one of the funnier things is I learned that if you put deodorant between your legs, you will not chafe between your legs. And this is a real struggle, and somebody might be like, "Man, that is dumb." Well, man, when you can't go, like, you can't just like take a shower,
Yeah.
whatever. You got to figure out what works out there. So, no, we load everything up. We get dropped off on a boat. We have tent, obviously all primitive stuff. We fish. We cook some of the fish that we catch. We cook everything over a fire on the beach.
Man.
It's awesome, man. probably my favorite thing is that my phone will not last 5 days. So the second I
Yeah.
touch that island and everybody's there, everything's cut off. I'm outside. It is the best reset in the world for me. I love it. But we're out there. So the last time we were down there was 2 years ago. We got hit by some just absolutely wild storm that decimated us. It was a storm that blew over from Texas through the Gulf and hit us. So we're on the inner side of Florida. We're on the Gulf side of Florida,
Yeah, that's
kind of right
nice
outside
side.
of Clearwater.
Dude,
Yeah.
Clearwater is one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah, so we're not far off of Clearwater. We're out on an island called Anclody Island out there, and which if you look it up, we're about a mile and a half, 2 miles off the coast, and we got hit by a storm that pummeled us with like 65-mile-an-hour winds, and I'll we went out there, had a great time. We knew the storm was coming, and the people down there were like, we really advise you not to go out there, and we're like, we're gonna give it a shot.
Dang,
so we went out there. And there were 4 different tents out there. And the day that this storm hit us, we all slept in one tent because the other 3 were not there anymore. The wind destroyed everything. We had lightning strike about 200 yards from us on the beach while we were out there. And we finally, it was once the winds died down from 65, we sustained, it was like 30-mile-an-hour winds for probably 8 hours straight.
And for those who don't know, like 30-mile-an-hour winds, that's legit. That is a serious, that's not like a constant breeze. That is, you're not like, if you have a handful of papers, your paper's gone. That's serious.
Right. Yeah. So like on the beach, like 15 miles an hour starts to kind of become uncomfortable. You start like getting into like 17, 18, 19, 20-mile-an-hour winds. Now you're getting the sandblast effect. Like it is uncomfortable, unless you have some kind of coverage. 30 mile an hour. It was rough. It did a lot of damage to us. It definitely broke the spirits a little bit, but we've done that a lot. We'll go back and we'll hit it again. We try to do something like that once a year, and especially now with all the COVID stuff in the world, it's throwing more people back outside, which I think is I think that's a great thing. That's a great thing. But man, it is a fantastic experience. Everybody always says like, "Oh man, you're crazy for going out there and doing stuff like that."
Dude,
no, is it the naked and afraid kind of thing? We have stuff with this, but we have a chance to try to live off the land a little bit while we're out there.
So do you have to have like a permit, like some kind of camping permit to be out there? Or are you just, finding a boat shop that'll just take you out there?
So actually, just in the business community, what I did through all of my customers and friends is I found one of my customers that had a buddy that had a boat down there, and we would pay him to come to the dock. And we talked him into allowing us to load everything up and drop us off on the island.
Oh my God.
There's a park ranger out there on the island. He is the only house. He lives on the island. The island, I think the island's about 2 or 3 miles tall. So he's on the very south side. We're on the very north side of the island. He is the only other soul on that island. And the only thing is once you get there, you call into the park ranger and say, "Hey, we're here. We're going to be here from dates, blah, 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 to blah, blah, blah." And he'll come in and poke his head in every now and again. But,
dude,
he says,
what a life that guy lives. Oh my God.
Yeah, and he's the only guy. So again, going back to, by himself, like all the time.
Solitude.
That's
oh my gosh, man, dude, that is crazy. And have you done anything other than the Florida island before? You guys gonna do like Colorado woods, or a day or 5 days in the Arizona desert, anything like that?
Yeah, we'd like to do some more. Kind of tinkered around out in the Ozarks a little bit. That's a beautiful place. It's woods, so I'm comfortable there. Kind of know all the gear that I need to have. Desert kind of changes gear stuff.
It's different.
Yeah, I don't know all of the gear, and especially going into cold weather stuff there too. You got different gear requirements that you got to have to be out there to not get yourself in trouble. But yeah, we'll be out there in the truck. However, truck is not the same as being out there in a tent.
No, so it's actually funny you say that. There was a Discovery Channel show when I was probably 17 or 18, probably, I don't know, 2011 maybe. And it was a guy who drove a Jeep off-road, because they had a Jeep and they had a driver and they had this survival expert. And they went to all these different places and they drove the Jeep around. And then the survival expert would like use things off the Jeep to survive for the day or night. And it had one season. It had like 4 or 5 episodes. Really cool, but I think it like had horrible ratings. Like I know, for example, one of the things is they were in the desert. They talked about airing down tires, things like that. And they also talked about like water collecting. And I'll never forget it. The guy, because I had a Jeep TJ. Jeep TJ was on the show. I was enamored. And he jumps right in the middle of the hood right before nighttime. And he's like, and obviously the driver guy was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he was like, "This is how we're going to collect water. We're going to, condensation. It's going to all get here." So he smashed the hood in, and that's where they had their water for the day or so. And like I said, don't know what happened to the show, but really interesting idea. I've always been a big fan of Survivor Man. Man versus Wild is bullcrap because the guy just stayed in hotels. Dude, that pissed me off so bad. But once you go back and watch it, you're like, oh yeah, this guy definitely wasn't doing this. But Survivor Man is pretty legit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But anyways, all in all, I love those kind of derail conversations. Are you a fan of the UFC by chance? You keep up with any of that?
No, I haven't kept up with a lot of it. I used to watch it pretty religiously way back when, but I have a lot of respect for those guys and watch some of it, but I don't keep up with it.
Yeah, so I like it. It's way too expensive to watch every fight. Holy smokes. But I have like ESPN Plus and stuff like that, so I get to see the fun stuff. But this weekend there's a heavyweight title fight. You have one guy who touches you at all, and you just, you're out. And then you have probably he is the most decorated heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic. So very exciting fight this weekend. I always like bringing it up because I have intermittently I'll bring up the UFC and kind of talk about it with people. But looking forward to that. We got a race this weekend, so busy stuff and all that kind of fun stuff. But Alex, I had a great time talking to you. Was there anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I think we covered a good chunk of it. I mean, we're always going to miss stuff, but yeah, I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll just say this: I'm looking forward to next time. I always enjoy having people on who. My wife is getting home, so I'll close this door real quick. I always enjoy having people on who are really good at what they do, and you are definitely in that category. So find you, where is your social media? Do you have like separate stuff, or are you all under CT Race Worx?
I have just my page on Facebook's Alex Reed. I don't have much of anything else. I might do an Instagram thing at some point, especially once we get out in the truck. But as of now, no, I'm just me on there. I don't spend a whole lot of time on there, on the social medias and stuff like that.
That's good. That's healthy, man. Yeah, it's if my business wasn't built on it, I wouldn't have it. So
I'm not too far. Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple guys that are on there pretty often, and I'm on there a lot too. But in terms of posting a lot of personal stuff, I don't do that too terribly often.
Yeah, well, I definitely understand that for sure. But that's it. That's all I got for you. We'll close it out here. Anybody you need to give a shout out to while we close this out?
No, I mean my wife for letting me spend all my time here at work and build this business up, and her being right there, pushing me along the way. It's she is definitely a big reason why I've got that positive motivation there to keep pushing things forward, especially in every business owner has their time of doubt, and you've got that good reinforcement behind you. That's a big thing. That's a massive thing. So and all my guys here, man, like I said, I obviously play a large role here in development and everything, but again, without my guys, man, we've got nothing. Those guys out there that are killing it every day, those are the guys. So my wife and my guys here.
Awesome,
Yeah.
man. Well, with that, we'll close it out. Stay on the line for me. We'll chat for a few minutes, and thank you everybody for listening. If you're listening to the audio version, I highly suggest that you check out the YouTube version. Give us a subscribe, all that kind of dumb stuff over there. It helps us more than you know. And we'll be at Wildcat Off-Road Park this Saturday. If you're listening to this on the raceway out there, come give me a shout out, and we'll come hang out, and we'll be around this weekend. So, Alex Reed, thanks for being on the show, buddy. And like I said,
sir.
Can't wait till next time.
Yeah, man.